I'd like to call this meeting to order. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. The use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, which tonight we definitely don't have a full board, we only have 6 people, you must inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Murphy.
We'll go with the first order of business, which is the approval of minutes.
All right. So we have the approval of minutes of last month.
Motion to approve.
Well, before we do that, is there any addendum or modifications to the minutes? Seeing none, then
Motion to approve.
is there a
Support.
second? Thank you.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing,
Nope, I'm waiting for you to call the vote.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We do have old business, case number 18-5-12. The public hearing on the appeal of Matthew Norton, petitioner and owner for the following variances at 939 Lafayette Court. A, alter, expand a non-conforming structure. B, waive 1 foot of the minimum required 4-foot east side yard setback. And C, waive 79 feet of the maximum allowable lot coverage of 1,800 square feet. Mr. Murphy.
Yep. As the board may recall from last month, I think probably a good refresher is the photograph that's on the screen in front of you. There's a 1-story portion along the rear of the dwelling that is too close to the side yard, and the petitioner is looking to expand that, add a second floor, and extend the house further to the rear, keeping that non-conforming side yard setback. Those 2 variance requests, and then there was also a variance request associated with how much of the structure could cover the lot or the total lot coverage. Going back and looking at the numbers again, the petitioner was kind enough to ask me to do that, and I realized that I made an error and it does not require a total lot coverage variance. So simply the expanding of the non-conforming structure in a non-conforming manner, again seeking the variance of 1 foot from that minimum required 4-foot setback.
So just A and B is all
Yes.
that's required.
Correct.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
So are they still, Mr. Murphy, they're going up from the portion that juts out 1 foot too far, but are they still replacing the deck with building?
Yes. Yeah, the petitioner has not modified the drawings, and we
Okay.
can zoom in on the sketches, the drawings that they provided to give you a clearer illustration.
So you're saying that the first variance is not necessary anymore?
No, the last variance.
C.
C.
C is not required. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, is the petitioner here? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Matthew Norton. I live at 939 North Lafayette Avenue in Royal Oak.
Did you want to speak any more on this issue from last time, or?
Yeah, last time, really, it seemed that we had quite a good debate, on the topics we were asking for. Eventually we ended up tabling it to go back and look, which I'm very grateful we did, because the lot size to structure size, there was a calculation error, so that part of it's not even close. Really, the issue is just the irregular lot where 6 to 8 foot of just the addition on the existing structure would be with under that setback. And then we got into that last time. As you go back further, you're now within, the required setback. So it's really just that section. It's non-conforming there.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner?
As I recall from last time, there is a deck currently in place.
Yes, sir.
that is sticking out further today than this addition would were you to be granted your variance, right?
That is correct. Currently today, and looking at that picture gives you an idea, the farthest edge of the deck is 32 inches from the edge of the house. So by removing the deck and extending the house back, essentially you're opening up a much larger space between that edge of the property, so.
That's what I recall. Thank you.
Is there any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, well, thank you very much. Well,
He has the option of what's
Oh, right.
deciding.
oh, yes. Did you want us to decide on this today since we do not have a full board, or do you wish to table it for another month?
I would like to decide on it today. It's, if possible.
Because you still need, just so you know, you still need 5 of us to, not a simple majority. So in this case, you'd need to have only one, no more than one dissenter in order for your variance to pass.
I understand.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No, I was going to make sure he understood that.
In that case, are you prepared for a motion?
No,
Oh, do you have to open it back up now, or?
You can if you want.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
real quick, anyone here to speak on this for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll open back
Yeah.
up discussion here.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
I'd second.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know that I was prepared to give 79 square feet, but 1 foot seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I recall that the discussion last time was very much about the coverage issue and less about the setback. And I'm very happy for the neighbor to the south that they're actually gaining some distance by granting this variance, because that deck is more of an infringement on their space than this addition. I think it's a win.
It's really is the odd-shaped lot, which is one of those things we look for. And I don't think we've increased any nonconformity, because all the nonconformity is the piece that exists in the house today. As it goes back, you see that lot tapering away from the house, so I'm not even seeing, I don't see a problem with it anyways, but it also is not like we maintained this same closeness to the property line, which we don't, so I'm for this one.
Sukin, anything, or no? Okay. As before I stated, I understand their hardship because of the lot size, and the problem that I personally had before was the lot coverage, but considering that's not part of it anymore, I don't have a problem with expanding the nonconformity as it is. That's their hardship of owning it before it had the requirement setback, so I'm perfectly fine also. Seeing no more discussion, call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let us move to new business. Case number 18-06-14. This is the case of public hearing on the appeal of C.E. Watson Company, petitioner, and Wilbur White, owner, for the following variance at 227 North Campbell Road. Variance A, waive 1.9 feet of the minimum required 4-foot side yard setback. Mr. Murphy.
This property is located on North Campbell Road, just north of 11 Mile. And the site is comprised of 2 platted lots. And the petitioner is seeking the opportunity to divide the property and revert back to the original plat, as you can see on the, on the screen in front of you. If I can zoom out a little bit better, I think it'll help. In doing so, and going back to the original platted lot lines, the house would result in the house having a setback of only 2.1 feet off of the new property line. And the ordinance requires that the house, for this wide of a piece of property, that the house be no less than 4 feet from the property line. So they're seeking a difference of 1.9 feet to allow for the house to be that close to the new lot line. And that would result in creating a vacant buildable lot on what's originally platted as lot number 33.
Questions?
Yeah, on lot 33 then, if they build a house, it could be up to 4 feet to that lot line, correct?
Yes, the side yard setbacks could be up to 4 feet if they had an attached garage. If they had a detached garage, it would require at least an 8-foot driveway on the north side of the property or on the south side of the property. So if they put the driveway on the north side of the vacant lot, that would provide a greater distance between the structures. Now, obviously, that still doesn't change the fact that the existing home would only be 2.1 feet from its property line.
And Joseph, just to be clear, we have no separation requirement between homes, correct?
That is correct. The building code has, as you know, some fire ratings per the material, the closer you get to distance between structures. So the closer those two structures are, a new home would be, that would be governed by the building code. You would
That's a
probably-
point
you
I
would
had. I
know
think
that
if they're
better.
less than 5 feet, that may require some bit of fire resistance on that wall.
And we certainly wouldn't have that circumstance in any condition because if a house were to be built on the vacant lot, it could only be 4 feet from its property line plus this 2.1 feet. So it would still exceed that 5 feet, the minimum 5 feet.
Thank you.
And, let's see, using the variances, how wide of a building could you get on their house?
Well, it's a 40-foot wide, it would be a 40-foot wide lot.
Right.
So if they built a house with an attached garage, the side yard setbacks could be no less than 4 feet on each side. So the deduction of 6 feet would leave you a 32-foot wide house. If they had a house with a detached garage to the driveway, to the rear of the house and a driveway alongside the house, the driveway would need to be at least setback for the driveway side would be 8 feet, and the opposite, or the non-driveway side, would be 4 feet. So take away 12 from the 40.
So you got 28 feet?
Yep, so 28 or 32, depending on the scenario.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Okay. Seeing none, is the petitioner present? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Chuck Watson. I'm the owner of C.E. Watson Company Incorporated. We're general contractors located in downtown Royal Oak. We have been for 38 years. My request tonight is for I believe it's a 1.9-foot deviation from the standard 4-foot setback at 227 North Campbell. This will allow me to produce some affordable housing at that location, and at the same time, being able to retain the 30-something traditional Royal Oak bungalows on the existing property. So that's what I'm asking for, is the 1.9-foot variation. The new house that I put on the south lot would obviously have the driveway on the north side, which would be an 8-foot setback for that. So it would help with that situation on that side of the house. Other than that, that's all I really got to say.
Okay. Any questions for the
I
petitioner?
guess, what is your role in this, sir?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what is your role in this? It's
I'm the owner of the property?
you own the property?
Yes, I do.
What's Wilbur White have to do with this?
He is the fellow I purchased it from. I don't know if the paperwork caught up with
Okay.
the city in the meantime, or...
Okay, thank you.
Are you planning to leave this house?
Yes, that's
there?
my plan, is not to demolish the house and to refurbish it. It's in very good shape. It's all natural woodwork throughout, hardwood floors. It's in very good condition.
Anyone else? So what is the hardship as to why you need to have this versus, because basically you're creating the problem yourself by wanting to split this lot versus keeping it as it is?
Well, again, it will allow me to provide some affordable housing, short of demoing the existing house. I mean, my other option is to demo the house, where there's not a perfectly good house, and build 2 new houses, which I wouldn't even be here in front of you right now. So the 1.9 foot makes a difference between trying to preserve a little bit of the old traditional bungalow, or tear it down and put up 2 brand new ones. I guess that's my hardship.
Okay. All right. Any questions? No?
I guess you could state that these are 2 40-foot platted lots. These are 2 40-foot platted lots. You really had no control over the placement of that original home on that setback side. So that really wasn't your doing to place that home on that lot in that manner.
I'm sorry, I'm real hard of hearing. Did you say what?
I said those lots were 40 feet wide, both lots. So
They're
you,
40-foot platted lots, separate deeds. I have separate deeds for them and everything.
so in speaking towards a hardship, you didn't place that original home on that lot. So that may be working towards a hardship. You didn't place that home. Trying to help you with your hardship here.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
You have any other ones for
Nope,
him?
just trying to help out.
All right, that's nice of you.
Before we open up public commentary, do you wish for us to vote on this tonight? You need
Yes.
5 of us to vote yes.
That's fine.
Okay.
You done with me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone to speak in the, open up public commentary? Anyone here to speak against or for this case? Okay, going once, twice, 3 times. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board and open up discussion and/or motions.
Well, I appreciate the applicant's willingness to place the driveway in the north side. I think that'll help with that buffer between the homes. I don't see how this will negatively impact the neighborhood. I think you have a park to the east, so it's not going to impact anyone. So with that, I'll make a motion to support.
I'll support your motion.
There we go.
I take it you mean you'll make a motion to grant the variance?
Yes, correct. Make a motion to grant the
both can
variance.
support. Wait a minute.
But, yes,
Correct.
There's a
Thank
lot
you.
of support on
no
this one.
problem. Additional comment? Anything?
I'm,
Well, you made did you want to speak more on it since you
Nope,
made?
I'm all set.
Ms. Sukin?
No, I think it's been said. It's nice to preserve the house. It's on Campbell. I'm not worried too much about the setback because the driveway hopefully will be going in there. I think that will make it easier for the owner to sell it. So I don't have an objection.
we've been here two cases and we've already given away like 3 feet.
2.9, I think.
2.9.
Yeah.
Big ones.
Yeah, I'm in support of this because I think, again, these are platted lots, they exist as 40-foot lots. He didn't place the original structure that close to the edge. So, yeah, I think this is a good move to add affordable housing.
I'm sort of torn on this, but I'll still vote for it because it is his own making of trying to split the lots instead of keeping it as it is, and it's nice to keep some of these larger lots, but as he stated, he could easily torn it down and not even come in front of us, so I'd rather something that's good still stand up versus be torn down and have 2 brand-new structures. So I'll be in support. If there's no other discussion, I'll call to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Variance is granted.
Thank you.
He heard that. As we're moving quite along, case number 2, agenda item number 2, case number 18-06-15, public hearing on the appeal of Culinary Investments, LLC, petitioner, and the Nash Family Limited Partnership for 213 through 219 South Main Street. It is, come on, open up. Use variance, of which, Joseph, would you like to?
Sure, yep. I'll jump right in. It'll be brief. At their April 23rd meeting, the City Commission approved a change to Mr. B's liquor license plan of operation, and it was contingent upon them obtaining the necessary variance from you tonight. So prior to their approval, they proceeded forward with removing, as you can see on the floor plan, the area in question, the north side of of the tenant space on their floor plan. They removed 64 seats and tables, and they converted this floor area to the use of mechanical amusement devices. And under the zoning ordinance, mechanical amusement devices are regarded as any place, premise, room, or establishment with 3 or more such devices, or a significant portion of their business. So such an establishment, again, whether it's the full establishment, a significant portion of their business, or even 3 or more machines, such an establishment is expressly prohibited within the central business zoning district or where this site is located. So the petitioner is seeking a use variance in order to operate the arcade room within their existing restaurant.
Okay. One quick question before we open up the rest. I'm assuming because it's use variance, we need 6.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Seeing none, is the petitioner here present? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Allen here tonight with John Kreplak. John is the sole owner of Culinary Arts, also known as Mr. B's, who you all are familiar with. What Mr. Murphy states is correct, as always. And this is a really difficult situation, and I just want to give you a little bit of background. You know, Mr. B's has been there for over 30 years, since the 1980 about. And since it opened, it has had 3 or more arcade games. It's had pool tables. Pool tables don't classify. They're billiards under your ordinance, but forever they've had these. When John bought the place, there were more than 3 arcade games in the establishment. And when we went to the city commission to change the plan of operation, he's doing some added use downstairs, and all of a sudden, it's not allowed in the CBD. Well, of course, it was never allowed in the CBD, but no one ever came to John and said anything to him until we applied for these other uses. And I do want to make sure that everybody in this table knows that he did not do this on purpose. Having had these arcade games in there forever, having paid for these arcade games forever, the fact that he took these tables down and moved all these games into this one area was not like this to the city. It was just that he really didn't understand. And when Lieutenant Moore called me and said, you got to shut it down, he shut it down. And he shut it down until such time as we got to the city commission, got the plan of operation approved, and then we filed this application. So, and he's been sort of operating it during this time of sort of non-enforcement. When we went to the city commission, I thought it was really interesting. On April 23rd, City Commissioner Pat Perouche said, this was put in place many, many years ago. I tried, I researched it to try to see when this ordinance was enacted with regard to the 3 in the CBD, and I could not find it. But she said the purpose of her understanding, she's been around for a little while, I should say that out loud, and was to keep kids out of the downtown in what would truly be known as an arcade. One singular building with a bunch of games in there, a lot of kids without parental guidance, partying without parents and getting in trouble in the CBD. And since that time, there really haven't been any problems, at least that I understand or that the City Commission had understood with regard to these kinds of games and kids in the downtown area. These games that John has at Mr. B's are like vintage games. They're pinball, skee-ball. They're not crazy video games. They're nothing, like those games that kids play that are violent and horrible. And they're meant to attract families and to attract others who come to the restaurant, adults, to do while they're waiting or whatever. This is definitely, obviously, not the primary use of this building. So he did this in keeping with what had been. Then when we went to the City Commission, they said, well, yeah, we don't seem to have a problem with it, but our code says what it says, and so you're going to need this variance. So the purpose is not to change the use. We look at this as an ancillary use. Mr. B's is over 9,000 square feet, and this area is about 1,400 square feet. But it's that 3-game problem. And I think a literal reading of your ordinance would throw a lot of people in the CBD into an arcade situation. The ones that we checked today were O'Toole's, Ye Olde. I bet there are more downtown that have arcade games, but it's not been an issue. There hasn't been any enforcement, and it's been going on for years. So I know it's tough to get a use variance. I mean, obviously, and I think there may be another way to skin this cat, but we're here for the use variance tonight. And I do think that without this variance, it does create a hardship, not on just Mr. Prepelec, but I don't know how the city doesn't enforce against others if not against Mr. B's. So if we look at the nature of the property, it's a restaurant. A restaurant is obviously allowed in the CBD under the code. This arcade is not, but I have to look at it in a strict interpretation as a portion of the building, not the entire building. And whether the arcade games were where they were before when John bought the place, sort of scattered all around, or in one place, which is really, I think, what drew attention to this thing. You couldn't use the little places for anything else, for a restaurant, for a bar. I mean, so I'm sort of breaking down the property, because we're looking at the property for this use. And the other thing, the next factor is that this appeal is unique. I mean, this has been going on for 30-plus years, and he paid for the privilege of using these games all these years, and was never shut down. Now he's invested in these games. You know, they're not huge state-of-the-art games on the one hand. On the other hand, it is a reason that Mr. B's is popular. It is a reason that families come to Mr. B's. It is a reason that John bought Mr. B's, because he understood that he could have what his predecessor had and the predecessor before that had. So I think he's, while it would be probably a stretch to call it a property right, he does have a vested interest here, and I think at this stage of the game, shutting it down would be inappropriate and such a strict reading of the ordinance that it would be very harmful and create a hardship. The use of these games will not alter the character of the area for any stretch. In fact, we know that there are others similarly situated in the CBD. He didn't create this hardship. They were there when he bought the place, and so he didn't do it to himself. And we think that there's no reason for safety, public health, safety, welfare, any of those kinds of reasons that would prohibit the use variance. And it will preserve, I think, the property right that he has in his business, as well as the Nash family, because they own the building. I think granting the variance is the minimum relief that you could give in this particular situation. I mean, there's no, I want to give him 2 games. I don't, because of the severity and the strictness of this portion of your ordinance, 3 games makes an arcade, which I, would sort of tend to disagree with. This is really the only relief you could give him, would be to allow him to continue the use that he's had in there for 30 years. John is very well spoken. He is the brain trust of the new and improved Mr. B's, and he's doing really well with all his new concepts in there. So if you have any questions of him and what this is attracting, I'd appreciate you asking him so he can address it.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
For Chef Johnny, I see on the shirt. This seems to me, in my mind, sort of a trend in bars and restaurants nowadays, right? That the nostalgia of these old games seems to be something that's very popular in the culture these days. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Mr. B's has been around for a long time, and one of the, challenges I have in a very competitive restaurant and bar community is to keep it a competitive business and keep it viable. And one of the things that I've done is, I've gone into Detroit and I've gone to other cities and I've studied, what is contemporary and what is popular and, what is drawing today's customer into these organizations. And if you go down to Detroit and you see the Checker Bar, or you see Real Player One, these vintage game arcades are very popular with the millennials. Not just the millennials, to be honest with you, they're popular with people my age because, we're talking about Pac-Man, shuffleboard, foosball, stuff, we used to play in college. And that's a lot of what it is, it's really a matter of allowing us to kind of stay contemporary with trend. I mean, we also got approved to put a speakeasy in our basement. Same thing, we're just trying to be competitive and to keep Mr. B's refreshed. There's bars and restaurants opening in this town all the time. And, I really did get caught blindsided on this. I really had no idea because when I bought the place, we had several video machines. I pay a license to the city every single year for these video machines, And, I never read the code. I didn't know that you could only have 3. I didn't know we were outside of the code when I bought the business, I mean, Mr. B's began as a pool hall. You know, Mr. B's has pool tables, we have keno, we have karaoke, we have trivia. I mean, it's an entertainment center, and a lot of it centers around games. So it really kind of surprised me. And truthfully, the only reason the whole thing blew up is because, you know, I got some PR that we were doing this. And it was good PR. It was like, you know, Mr. B's is, you know, keeping up with the times and doing some of the things they're doing in Detroit. And, you know, Detroit's a real competitor. I mean, you know, we can't close our eyes to that. I mean, we have to stay contemporary, you know. And, you know, it's, when they told me I had a problem, I shut it down. And, you know, I went for city commission and, you know, it's an integral part of a big business. You know, I'm not in the arcade business to make money. I'm in the arcade business because I have families that come in with kids, and it gives a family an opportunity to let the kids go play the game so they can sit there and have a conversation, you know, which is a nice thing. I find that on weekends when we do have, and we're a liquor licensee, we check IDs. We don't have minors. We really don't get high school kids playing these games. They don't come to Mr. B's. You know, they play their games on their phones. We don't have like Call of Duty. We don't have all these games. I mean, this is, you know, Pac-Man and Centipede and, you know, pinball machines and that kind of stuff. But we control, you know, we're obligated to control the people that come into our bar, their access to liquor, their access to drugs. None of that activity goes on with minors, and we don't even allow minors in our bar after 9 o'clock at night. So, you know, I understand back in the 70s, you know, these standalone arcades, you know, you send your kids there and you don't know what's going on and they're partying. I mean, I kind of get that, you know. But this really isn't that. This is kind of a nostalgic trend that millennials have kind of picked up, you know, and then all of a sudden you realize that there's a lot of people our age that have played these games when they were younger. They kind of find it fun too, and you know, that's the whole reason we're doing this. So, you know, I would greatly appreciate you letting us keep that aspect of our business. I think it allows Mr. B to, you know, try to direct itself in a leadership role in our community in terms of the kind of entertainment it provides and the contemporary nature of what we're trying to do with our business. So, thank you.
I think it's hilarious, the irony of, to be contemporary, you need these nostalgic games in your restaurant. And furthermore, the problem that maybe was trying to be addressed in the 70s with this ordinance, the kids we were trying to prevent from gathering, these are the grown-up people who are in Mr. B's wanting to play the game. I just find it hilarious that
Ms. Zukin, you were patient.
Yeah, you did answer one of my questions, which was that high school kids can't come in unaccompanied at night. So you're not going to have roving bands of kids coming in without their parents. But how many machines have you added since you took over?
I think we had about 9.
So what's the total number?
You know, I don't have a list of machines.
12, 15.
Okay.
There's 15 machines. I think we added 8 because I think we had 7 before.
Okay. All right,
And
thanks.
Not including pool.
Right.
Anyone over here with questions?
No problem.
I have a question for Joseph. Maybe you could stay up here while I'm asking. If somebody else bought this establishment and they just wanted to turn it into an arcade and get rid of the restaurant, would they be able to do it?
Well, the restaurant's governed by the liquor license plan of operation and that specific floor plan. And it's, if someone were not operating a restaurant anymore at that location and operating a full-blown arcade, then yes, they would need to come back in front of you because it would be use of the entire tenant space.
Okay. All right.
Now, seeing no other questions, before we open this up to public comment, because it is a use for variance, it requires 6 on the board, of which we only have 6. So therefore, if there's even one dissenting vote, this does not pass. Do you wish for us to vote on this tonight, or do you wish to table it for next month, when there might be more on the board?
The total board is 7, right?
9.
Nine.
we get
They
to
can
operate
let
until next
us
month.
know directly after public comment.
You can let us know directly after public comment if you want. If you want to take a, well, We'll open up public comment. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this? All right, it looks like nobody, so you can come back up and let us know
Give them a chance to
if you get.
A little background on this case, I'll say this particular ordinance provision, as many ordinance provisions, they're developed based on circumstances that arise, and then ordinance provisions are put in place to prevent things like, so this particular ordinance provision was put in place after a particular establishment many, many moons ago called the Black Cat, if anybody remembers Black Cat, was the result of this particular ordinance provision and the specific language behind it.
You always seem to write that employee handbook for that one employee.
Yeah, right.
I think that was written by an attorney, not a planner.
Guess I've been advised that it might be in our better interest to wait till there's 9 people here.
Okay, that's all right. We can see if there's a motion to table this till next month.
It's never a guarantee that next month there isn't just 6 people here.
Or 5.
Or 5, yeah. Well, just to let you know, that could happen again. Yeah.
Do we know how many people? Next month or no?
I haven't been given any
You're
indication.
suggesting you think I should vote for it?
It's your choice as to whether or not you, if you wanted, you can take another minute.
Cue the music.
She's walking
Richard,
away.
Cue the music.
Yeah, I have to listen to my counsel, but I think we're going to wait till next month.
Okay, that's perfectly fine.
Sorry for waste,
We're
No, you
sorry
don't-
we don't have a full board.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening.
So how about a motion?
Is there a
to
motion that-
adjourn?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn till next month.
Support.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of adjourning till next month, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. See you next month. And let's see, we'll move on to the next case. Case number 18-06-16. Public hearing on the appeal of Jennifer and Stephen Humphrey, petitioner and owner for the following variance at 119 Detroit Avenue. Variance A, waive 1% on the maximum allowable lot coverage of 10% for accessory structures for a detached garage and shed. And variance B, waive 5.2 of the maximum allowable total lot coverage of 30%. Mr. Murphy.
Property contains a recently constructed 2-story single-family dwelling and a detached garage to the rear. The structures were built to the maximum allowable lot coverage at the time of construction. Since the building department issued their final certificate of occupancy, there's been an additional shed that's been placed adjacent to the detached garage. And that shed is shown on the survey in front of you on the screen. The shed results in the property exceeding the maximum allowable lot coverage, because again, the existing house and the garage were right at 30%, right at the maximum. So that pushes it over the maximum allowable lot coverage slightly. And that addition includes the existing house, the existing front porch, detached garage, and of course the shed. Together, the ordinance allows for 2 accessory structures, so we consider an accessory structure, as you know, an attached garage, a detached garage, a carport, a shed. So ordinance allows for 2 accessory structures, which they do have, the shed and the detached garage. Together, those 2 cannot cover more than 10% of the lot area. The shed results in the total lot coverage for the 2 of 11%, so they're seeking a waiver from that standard. There's a concrete patio along the rear of the house, and the petitioner is proposing to extend the roof line and create a covered patio or a covered porch off the back of the home. That's included, the covered area, the roof line is included in the total lot coverage. So if we include the existing dwelling, the front porch, detached garage shed, and the proposed covered porch along the rear, the total lot coverage exceeds the maximum 30% by 5.2%. So they're seeking a waiver from the total lot coverage for all the structures, and they're seeking a lot coverage from the allowable percentage for accessory units.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Yes,
Accessory
Mr.
structures.
Since they're seeking a variance for the 1%, I assume that they didn't get a permit to build that shed?
I don't recall the size of the shed. Let's take a look. The shed is below the threshold by the state law to get a building permit. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to meet the zoning ordinance standards, but you don't need to get a building permit for it. So that's oftentimes the confusion with people. They know they don't need a building permit, and they just put one up, or sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 in a backyard. But that doesn't mean that they don't need to meet the zoning ordinance provisions. Anything under 200 square feet doesn't need a building permit, as long as it doesn't have electrical or mechanical. So it doesn't need a foundation permit. You can go to Home Depot and Lowe's, put one on your property.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, is the petitioner present? May they come forward, speak your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Humphrey. This is my husband, Stephen Humphrey. Address is 119 Detroit Avenue. Thank you very much for having us. As you stated, we do have the shed pre-built. We did not know that it needed to have come before you all. We've actually done really good about getting building permits. If you look back at the history of our house, when we finished our basement, we had pulled everything from insulation to plumbing to mechanical to electrical and the general building permit. So we're generally pretty good at pulling permits when we know we need them. So we do apologize. If we had known, we absolutely would have done it. The other thing is when we built the property, if you can see, there's actually a piece of cement that goes along the right side of the garage. That is actually there because originally the lot was flipped, so the driveway was on the other side instead of the side that it's on currently. Because of that big tree that you see there on the left side, which actually supplies a lot of shade to our yard. So there was actually footings poured in that area where the shed currently sits now, and we do have a rat wall and did follow the guidelines so that it matched the garage as well. So a couple of things that I wanted to hit real high points. The property is actually going to be under full sun likely soon as a result of the health of the sugar maple that is directly to the west of our property. We actually had Davy Tree, and I actually have the paperwork from Davy here with us if you'd like to see it. They came out today. We had paid about $1,000 to try to save that tree. As our neighbor's tree. It's not actually our tree. And we paid last year $1,000 to try to save the tree. We had spanning lines put in. We had filling material put in for the red squirrels because it's a sugar maple. Red squirrels just love to drill holes through sugar maples. And we did what we could to try to save our neighbor's tree because it provides significant shade to us. The reason why shade is important to us is actually 8 years tomorrow, my father passed away from melanoma. So we are very conscious about the sun exposure to our family. We have a young child and avoiding those sorts of things. So we would like to enjoy the outside. We really like being outside as much as possible. So having that shed-style roof back there to cover up that back porch is important to us. Like I said, Davey has come out to take a look already at the tree, and I have that document here if you would like to see it, and indicated that the tree has been repopulated with the red squirrels, and all the work that we did filling those holes to prevent the hollowing out of the tree has been undone by the red squirrels, unfortunately. The property itself is one of the smaller plots on our block. Both properties to either side of us are much larger than ours, especially the one to the east. It's significantly larger. We are limited on our lot. Our garage is just a standard 2-car garage. We both have large vehicles. We have a family full of bikes and significant outdoor recreational equipment that we utilize here in the city. So we have our shed with our lawnmower and our snow blower, and we try to be good neighbors. We actually clear all of our neighbors' sidewalks and their driveway entrances, so when the city goes by and plows them in, we want to make sure that our neighbors who are more advanced age can also get out of their driveways. The backyard is not currently conducive to planting another tree. We looked into having Davey bring in another large tree to provide shade to the backyard. It's not something that we can do with our neighbor's power line and cable line. When we built our house, we buried the cable lines and the power lines, but our neighbor still spans across a portion of our backyard, and a tree would interfere with their power lines. The property size is what's truly limiting our enjoyment. We did not split the property. It wasn't split, to our knowledge, anytime recently. Both homes on either side of us have been there for 60 years. We're asking to construct an unobstructed view style roof. We did submit with our documentation letters from our neighbors to either side and all three neighbors to the back of us as well, letting them know and getting their approval for that. And that's all we have.
All right. Questions for the petitioners?
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to your neighbors. That's always helpful when you get support on both sides, so thank you for doing that. I just have to ask, I mean, you're a bit overbuilt, and you're asking for a variance for that. Have you explored any options to potentially decrease that? And by that, I mean, I'm just looking at your covered patio plan, and I can see that there is a staircase down that takes about 3 feet, so you're about 18 feet out overall. Like, for example, if you were to raise that up to create an elevated deck surface, in theory, you could tighten it up 3 feet for that loss of the staircase.
Sure.
So you'd be a little bit less, it's just a way to
To
reduce.
have stairs.
Well, and also, our house is kind of elevated. When it was being built and they started digging the foundation, they hit groundwater. It was like a really wet summer. So our whole house is already sitting quite high out of the ground. And if we were to put a deck out at the level of our door wall, I mean, we'd be, 3 feet up on a 6-foot privacy fence. We'd pretty much be like on display.
That's a good point.
All of our neighbors. So we actually did investigate a deck, but when we first moved in, but it's too high up. It'd be a really tall deck.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Any other questions? Did you even look at any, oh, sorry, Mr. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The other question I had, did you look at, although I don't like them as much it is a usable solution, those awning extensions that come out motorized, so this way you don't have a permanent roof, and therefore, correct me if I'm wrong, they wouldn't need to be here.
They actually don't extend to the far reach of our patio area. They can only come out a certain feet, and I think it's only like 7 or 8 feet maximum that they can come out there. But they don't come out, they won't cover the entire area. And with the wind that we receive, because of the stretch of property between Rochester and Maine, it's kind of almost like a wind tunnel through there. So any sort of awning that would get there would have a lot of lift to it. And it's just not something that's really workable on our property.
Okay. Ms. Sukin.
When did you build this house?
2013, we moved in 2014.
And why didn't you seek to cover that patio area then?
Actually, so when we moved in, it was still wintertime and everything. We didn't even, like, the current back porches that we have, we had a picture of the backyard, they're temporary. I mean, they were wood deck things thrown up because it was, we didn't have time to actually build the real ones that we wanted to get in the house, so.
In reality, the tree is what we thought would provide enough shade for us.
Yeah, we didn't think we needed cover, so we had a giant maple tree.
It wasn't until we started looking at the tree and started receiving large branches coming down onto our property from our neighbor's tree that we had Davey go out. Like I said, we spent, and I have the invoice here if you'd like to see that too, $1,000 of our money to save our neighbor's tree. Because it was important to us to retain that shade as much as possible. Their arborist, who's a certified arborist who works here in the city quite often, said that they pruned the tree last season. Seeing die back again this year after just 1 year is a bad sign. Also seeing the squirrels running through the holes we foamed last year again is a bad sign. I feel the tree is hollow. This doesn't mean the tree will die, but it does mean that the tree can be significantly less stable. We added a cable to help with that, but Michigan seemingly getting more severe weather every year. The proximity is a hazard at this point. We want to assist our neighbors as much as possible with not creating hazard between the two properties, knowing that they may not have the resources to take care of the tree. We want to be good neighbors as much as we can and assist them with the removal when it's time. But it will significantly affect our lot at that time by bringing full sun to our lot.
Well, you would have had a lot of sun in the spring there.
We did have a lot of sun in the spring and we didn't use the lot.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. As previously stated, we only have 6 people on the board, you'd need to have at least 5 vote in the affirmative here. So after public commentary, you can decide whether or not you want us to table till next month or decide this month. Okay. So we'll open up public commentary. Anyone to speak about this case? All right, well, that's going to be quick.
Not getting a lot of audience participation.
They must be all for one case.
We would like to vote tonight.
Vote tonight, okay. All right, thank you. We'll open up discussion of the board. Is there any motions or discussion?
Well, I'm concerned that the house is already built out to the max, but I also appreciate the fact that they've reached out to their neighbors and their neighbors don't mind, because that's what I would be the most concerned about. You did mention they're elderly and it might be sold, but people buying it would know they're buying it with that awning, that roof line out there. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to vote yet, and I'm concerned about the shed being out there without, although they didn't know because it was a zoning issue, not a permit issue, but ignorance is never an excuse.
Our discussion, any motions? Mr. Crowell?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this.
Okay, is there support?
I'll support.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I think the reasoning is fair. I don't think they're really asking for that much. I tried to get in the back of the house and couldn't even really get back there, so I couldn't see it. I don't think a lot of other people are going to be able to see it either. I guess I'm convinced that us granting this tonight would give these people much greater comfort in their home. And again, I think it helps them and doesn't really hurt anybody else in the neighborhood. So I'm not totally convinced there's a strong hardship.
No, the applicant answered my questions, which I appreciate. It appears you've done your homework, you've looked at options, the sun's a big issue, of course, here. And so I said I'll be in support.
I'll voice my concern right now, and maybe it'll feed other people's discussion. I understand their concern. Unfortunately, hardship-wise, they've brought this issue upon themselves. The shed, I'm willing to allow, and partially, most likely. It's the porch I'm most concerned about. Not so much about them, but the future. By creating this roof structure, in the future allows someone else to come back before the board, maybe not them, maybe it is them, and entirely enclose it. So now you really have basically granted acceptance of overbuilding on the site, more so than the patio is already there. So that's my biggest concern about granting that portion of the variance. I'm a little bit more amenable to the first one, so even if it doesn't pass, I'm open to going back and looking at least the shed portion by itself. I don't know if anyone else has the same concerns that I do about the future.
Let me see if I understand your concern, and I'll ask Joseph. If there's a roof line extended here, does that grant this owner or subsequent owner to enclose it, or they'd be back for yet another variance to enclose it?
I wouldn't bring them back for an enclosure, no.
It wouldn't?
It wouldn't change the footprint, which is what the variance relates to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they would be able to, they'd have to do significant renovations to it, so they'd have to put in footings if they wanted to actually make it living space. They might be able to do some other modification to make it a screened porch or glass or something of that nature, but it wouldn't change, presuming it wouldn't change the footprint of
right.
it. No, it wouldn't come back.
Okay.
Something to point out too, it'll still be at that lower level. You know, it wouldn't be at the main floor level, it'll still be depressed because the way the roof line is designed, they physically can't bring that floor line through. So it would be at that low level, even if they did enclose it.
shot that through.
Oh, yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
6'10".
You might get somebody screen it at some point, but they're not gonna make it living space.
You know, I suppose you can imagine anything down the road that you want to. I'm kind of viewing that these people are coming for a cover to their porch. I mean, maybe someday someone will want to enclose it, but that certainly is not in front of us today.
No, I understand. Like I said, part of it is just thinking
Yeah.
long-term, our effects are long-term. It's not
I
just-
think you can, I think you can work through it to the point that you can deny everything if you work through it long enough, though. Again, I might be against the covered, but that's not in front of me, so.
But you're allowing them to do it by granting it now. That's why it's relevant to discuss it.
I'm
that's
voting in
all.
favor of letting them cover the porch.
But they could do whatever they want.
They could knock it down and build a skyscraper there. I mean,
No.
Anyway, any other discussion on this rule?
To the motion, I'm in support of it to allow the variance. I think it's a very attractive addition and to, the enjoyment of that yard. I'm really sorry to lose another sugar maple to squirrels, but there you go. And I think it's a good addition, and I think it's going to make that sun issue far more tolerable.
Have anything to add, or?
No, I think everything's been said on both sides. I can't add anything different.
All right, seeing none, we'll move to any further discussion. Last call.
Yeah, I just, again, want to point out a couple of the neighbors seem to have been in agreement with this proposed plan as well, as we see a couple letters to that effect in our packet, so.
Understood.
yeah, I think I do appreciate as well the amount of energy they put into trying to find various solutions to this, because we didn't really ask any questions that they didn't have the answers to. So I think they have worked through this and have arrived at this is the plan that works.
All right. No further discussion. We'll call to a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? It has passed.
Wasn't sure on that one.
All right, we are moving on to the fourth case of the night. Case number 18-6-17, public hearing on the appeal of Mark Nelson, petitioner owner for the following variances at 354 Detroit Avenue. Variance A, waive 10 feet of the minimum required lot width of 50 foot for parcel C. B, waive 9.9 feet of the minimum required lot width for 50 foot for parcel B. C, waive 9.9 feet of the minimum required lot width for 50 foot for parcel A. D, waive 3%, which is 223 square feet of the maximum allowable lot coverage of 10% for an existing accessory structure / garage on parcel A. And E, waive 0.1 feet of the minimum required 3-foot west side yard setback to retain an existing accessory structure / garage on parcel A. Mr. Murphy.
This property is located on Detroit Avenue, which is just east of Rochester Road. It's comprised of two platted lots, Lot 55 and Lot 56. It currently has a lot frontage of just over 120 feet along Detroit Avenue, a lot depth of approximately 183.75, and it has a resulting larger lot size of over 22,000 square feet. The petitioner is proposing to divide the property and revert back to the original platted lot size of Lot 55, which is 40 feet wide, by the same depth that I had referenced, and a resulting lot area of 7,350 square feet. They would be dividing what was platted as Lot 56 into two separate equal-sized properties, which are slightly over 40 and the same depth, and resulting lot area of 7,376 square feet. The zoning ordinance requires that any newly created lot maintain a minimum width of 50 feet. a minimum depth of 100, and a minimum resulting lot size of 6,000 square feet. So they're able to meet the minimum depth and the minimum lot area requirement, but they are seeking waivers from the standard 50 to make a 40, a 40.14, and another 40.14 foot wide lot. There is an existing single-family home and detached garage, which is illustrated on the aerial photograph in front of you. The petitioner would be retaining those structures, and there would be resulting buildable lots on each side of that structure. In their effort to retain all of those structures on the middle parcel, I'll refer to it as, there is a very large garage. It would result in the garage being 13% of that new lot size, that middle lot. It would be 13% of that lot, and it's only allowed to be no more than 10%. Now, I will note that the petitioner did receive a variance to have an oversized garage quite a few years ago. You'll see that in your packet. So there was action taken to have the oversized garage, but the petitioner wants to keep that on a reduced lot size. And in doing so, the new property line that would be created, the garage would be 2.9 feet from that new lot line. We require that the garage be at least 3 feet. So it needs that slight variance to allow the garage to retain and to be retained in the size that it currently is. I'll reference the survey that was provided by the petitioner as well. That's all I have.
Questions for Mr. Murphy?
So the square footage of each lot meets the minimum requirements?
As well as the depth, just not the lot width. And I put it in the packet here, I almost forgot about it. You'll see plat map on the screen in front of you, and it'll illustrate to the left-hand side of the screen are the commercial properties that front along Rochester Road. And as we turn right and head east on Detroit, you'll see Detroit has a whole host of interesting lot sizes and shapes and what have you. The petitioner's property is outlined in red, and again, it's comprised of 2 platted lots. One of those platted lots was at 80.28 feet for whatever reason. Perhaps the structure that's there was, perhaps it's one of the original structures in that area, and it was platted around, everything was platted around it, perhaps. But you'll see there's quite a variety of properties in that neighborhood. Some that are 40. Most of them, obviously, are far greater than 40.
Any other questions?
I guess just quick clarity. So even though parcel C, as I'm calling it, was originally platted as 40, it now requires a variance because they're reverting back to 40, correct? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that why the variance was triggered?
You'll see on the plat map, this references the original plat, lot 55 and 56. They have separate tax identification numbers, but they're held under common ownership. Okay. And so the ordinance states that lots, even if they have separate tax ID numbers, if they're held under common ownership and they're directly adjacent, and it's necessary for everything that's on that lot to have that extra portion, the ordinance says it's 1. So that's where it's outlined in red as what we recognize as the singular piece, even though it has 2 separate tax identification numbers. And one of the reasons that I included the former variance request in 1993 for I'll say the oversized garage, was that it specifically listed both of those properties, and the garage was dependent upon that extra, that side piece that we're talking about. So at this point, the ordinance says all of it's held under common ownership, it's all 1, and any split needs to meet the current ordinance requirements. But you are correct that it was originally platted as 40 feet wide.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a quick one for you, Joseph. On the off chance that, say, someone wants to force A and C to stay together because of the oversized garage, and allow B to be split off and allow that portion to be granted. Is that too crazy of a scenario, or is that all or nothing here?
It's definitely not all or nothing, or the petitioner could, another alternative is the petitioner could demolish the garage or a portion of the garage, move the garage, any of those different scenarios.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, is the petitioner present?
Yeah.
Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
It's Mark Nelson, 354 Detroit Avenue. I mean, I originally moved here back in 1989 from Phoenix, Arizona for a 6-month job, and obviously it went over a little bit, but my wife and I bought the house back in 1993, thinking that it's a big lot, we have kids, we got, somewhere for them to play, and also thinking, we could sell off the one lot when we retired and, have a little money for retirement and kids' college. And I wasn't aware of the fact that putting up that garage basically took away our option of selling that one lot on the side there. I always thought it was because the two lots, the house sits on that 80-foot lot. I thought that covered enough for the garage, but apparently it doesn't now. So that's why we're looking at, I'm looking at, my wife passed away a while ago, but I'm looking at trying, when you talk about hardship, well, I'm sure some of you put some kids through college, and it's not exactly cheap, but that's, like I said, mainly what our big plan was is to.
Their kids' hardships.
At least not to their faces.
You haven't met mine yet.
Yeah, I have some too, I think.
But that's, what our plans were, is to, sell off the one lot and possibly split the other one off and sell them to be able to, have a retirement and help the kids with college. And I'm 1 year away from retirement, so I thought it's a good time to try and get this thing pushed through here. And like he said, there's most of the homes in my area, to that end of the block are all 40-foot lots. Once you get farther down the street, you do get into the 50s and 60s, but pretty much the one across the street from me, next to me, on down, they're all 40-foot lots already. So I just assume that, adding 2 more 40s wouldn't be that big of a deal, since I'm basically looking at commercial property across the street next to me. That's one thing I was hoping somebody in here would demolish that party store there on the corner, but that hasn't happened yet. Got kind of tired of looking at that thing. But that's, my plan is to, sell them off and have some money to retire on and put my kids through college.
All right, questions for the petitioner? All right, as stated before, there's only 6 of us at the board here, so after public commentary, if you'd like for us to adjourn to next month, you're welcome to do so.
Well, can I poll you first, or?
No,
No.
unfortunately, you cannot. You would need 5 of us, though.
I guess I'll roll the dice here.
So, well, you can still think and listen to public commentary first, and then we'll ask.
I did talk to the neighbors, and none of them, have any problem with it, because obviously they're on 40-foot lots, and so they just look at, if we sell them and they put up new homes, their house values go up, and, so it also generates more revenue for Royal Oak.
All right.
All right, thank you.
We'll open up this for public commentary. Anyone to speak regarding this case, please come forward. Yes, sir. Hey, we finally have someone. Please state your name and address for the record.
How you doing? My name is Mike Dennis. I reside at 401 Detroit Avenue. I love my wife. Well, I moved to the area originally. My wife has since joined me. But I love our street. I love Detroit Avenue. But we really need to polish it up a little bit. As Mark mentioned, that party store is not really the grand entrance to Detroit Avenue that one would want. But I feel like our street has a lot of potential. It has a lot of potential for young families. That's what my wife and I are obviously planning to do with our home, is start a family. And I like the idea of having some newer homes that adhere to a lot of the architectural style that there are around. There's some great old kit homes on our block. There's some great craftsman stuff over there, and I would love to see some some beautiful homes in our area and kind of start polishing up Detroit Avenue. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add anything?
Anyone else to speak on this? All right, we'll close public commentary. Discussion.
You want to give?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd like to hear what. he
forgot
has
to
say.
ask. Did you want us to vote on this tonight?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
All right. So I can't add anything else, you said?
Well, someone
I
can
would like
ask.
to- I would like to hear what you
someone
have to say, sir.
I have there now, it's an old craftsman home. It's almost 100 years old now. I hadn't planned on, also planned on when I built these, sold these lots, is also kind of, some of the money was going to refurb the house because it's obviously getting a little bit old and needs a little bit of work on there. So that was also one of the reasons I was selling the place. Is since my wife passed away, my income got cut in half, so kind of need a little extra money to do some things. But, all right, thank you.
All right. Discussion and/or motions?
This is a tough one. You look at the lot, or look at the street, there's 50-foot lots, 80-foot lots, 40-foot lots, but the one positive here is that these 40-foot lots do seem to be clustered, I think as the applicant mentioned, towards the west end. So I guess it does make sense in a way if you're looking at it from that standpoint, that these 40-foot lots could make sense here.
Yeah, I agree. I would, as I was walking this street, counting sidewalk blocks, that's how I do it. Every sidewalk block is roughly 5 feet. I realized this could really, and the neighbor said, polish up this entrance to this Detroit Avenue. I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance and variance requests, and to, with the mindset that it really does fit with that end of the block.
Well, I'll second that.
All right. Extra to, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Yourself?
I'm still kind of going through my mind what I'm thinking here. The things I certainly like about it are, I agree with the neighbor, the street could use a little pizzazz. I guess I'm leaning toward it. Very seldomly do we have owners that live in the neighborhood and gonna do this. So it's gonna be done right. Most often we get developers and builders up in front of us and buying things and really don't care all that much how it turns out because they're not gonna live there, but this gentleman is. So I would think I'm gonna lean in favor of supporting this.
Anyone else to speak?
I'm a little more concerned with the garage issue, not the 40-foot lots. But at the same point, even though it's an extra large garage and it'll be a little close to the fence, whoever buys that lot will know that. It isn't like, oh, it's a surprise and this thing appeared. But that's somewhat of a minor point, but that was the only thing in it that just, and he built the garage, so in that respect, yes, that was a, you caused the problem yourself. But I don't have a problem with the, definitely the 40, basically the approximately 40-foot lots.
Well, there's no hardship here, but I agree that end of the street being so close to the commercial and not very nice commercial right now, I don't see splitting these lots up as hurting the neighborhood at all. So I'm willing to overlook the hardship issue, I think, at this point.
I'm in agreement for the reasons I stated earlier, so I'll be in support.
Well, my concern is the oversized garage and the amount of space it takes up, and I don't have a problem with at least one of these lots getting split off. And I'm concerned about both because it truly is, all three of them is a sort of a hardship brought upon himself. The one I could definitely see, okay, it got lumped in because you're all adjacent. So I am concerned a little bit about that, but That's just how I am. Plus, I like oversized lots, and it's sad to keep on seeing lots getting split and losing all the oversized lots. But, any other comments?
I think that this will look better. I'm gonna live across the street again and look over here, and I think I'm gonna like this a lot better than I'm gonna like what I'm seeing now.
I'm not denying that new houses always look better than nothing. I'm just saying, as a person who one day wishes they could have an oversized lot in Royal Oak, I'm quickly seeing that
Yeah.
disappear, so.
You know, I suppose one hardship could be these all started out as 40-foot lots, and all of a sudden they're 50-foot lots, so that in itself is a little bit of a hardship.
No,
And also, almost 1.5 of these lots face commercial to the north. So not that that's a negative, but they do face commercial.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call to a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Move on to the case number fifth for the night. Case number 18-6-18. Public hearing on the appeal of Holly Myers, petitioner and owner for the following variances at 1219 Ferris Avenue. Variance number A, waive 1.9% of the maximum allowable lot coverage of 10% for an accessory structure / garage. B, waive 1% of the maximum allowable total lot coverage of 30% for all structures. C, waive 0.7 feet of the minimum required 3-foot north side yard setback for an accessory structure / garage. And D, expand / alter a non-conforming structure. Mr. Murphy.
This property contains a recently renovated single-family home with a 440-square-foot detached garage. Petitioner proposes to construct a rear yard addition to that garage, as depicted on the aerial photograph in front of you. And this corner of the backyard, a rear yard addition that's 360 square feet. That results in an 800-square-foot accessory structure, which covers 11.9% of the lot area. And as you know, the ordinance only allows an accessory structure to cover 10% of the lot area. So they're seeking a waiver from that maximum standard. All of the structures on site, plus the addition to the garage, would result in a lot coverage of 31%. And the maximum allowable is 30%, so they're seeking a waiver for that. Based on the height of the proposed garage, the ordinance requires that it be maintain at least a 3-foot setback off the property line. And based on the petitioner's sketch, the existing garage is 2.5 feet off of the property line. Petitioner is looking to extend that same wall, that same line of the wall to the rear of the property to do the addition to the garage. Therefore, the addition to the garage would have a non-conforming 2.5-foot setback. Again, the required setback is 3, so they're seeking a waiver from that, slight waiver from that requirement.
Any questions for
Joe? What, don't we have a square footage of garage? Is that 800 feet?
Ordinance says any property in town can have up to 2 accessory structures, and the sum total of their floor area can be no more than 800 square feet, or 10% of the lot size. And I should say 10% of the lot size, and in no instance bigger than 800 square feet. So if you have an 11,000 square foot lot, you would say 10% is bigger than 800 square feet, and the ordinance says 800 square feet is the maximum.
So that's exactly what they're asking for here, is 800.
800, which is 11.9% of the lot area, and which again exceeds the 10%.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, is the petitioner present? If so, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Holly Myers, I live at 1219 Ferris Avenue in Royal Oak.
Good evening, I'm Steve Adden,
So Holly's my wife.
Yes.
So we recently just moved here from China. We wanted to come to Royal Oak because Royal Oak is progressive, very nice neighborhoods. We liked what we saw, we liked what we heard. We had 1 week to find a house, okay? So in that 1 week, we did a lot of looking, and we really said Royal Oak's where we want to be. We needed a fairly new house. We're both professionals, we're busy most of the time, wanted something that would allow us to get into the house. I did a very quick look on the website, and I saw the initial statement of 800 feet for a garage. I did not go through all the line items, and I'll be perfectly honest. The requirements for the 10% and the 30% until I talked to Mr. Murphy was quite confusing. So the fact of the matter is, we are actually living in a much smaller house than we lived in previously before going to China. So our basement's completely full. We have 2 cars that are in storage, I'm paying for. We have 2 motorcycles in storage that we're paying for. And our purpose is, and I also have a small woodworking shop that I do as basically something for my enjoyment. Currently, we have a 2-car garage and I have absolutely no room whatsoever. So the request was if we can extend this following the existing building. We understand the lot limits, and that's why we stayed at the 800 square foot rule. What we would do is in that section we're building, I would literally put in a lift so that I could put 2 cars there. I would have storage then for my 2 other cars that are in storage, and I put my motorcycles between our 2 normal driving vehicles and that other area, and I'd have a small area for the shop. If Mr. Murphy was to pull up my one drawing which shows the layout of the interior. We have also talked with both of our neighbors, both our left-hand and right-hand side neighbors and our aft neighbors. They have no issues. They said they saw no problems with it. If we were to look at the actual layout. So if you look at the drawing there, you can see the existing building. And if we lay out having the lift in the far right back corner, wood shop on the left, and I could place the 2 motorcycles in the, I'm going to call it the in-between area between those vehicles. That would really address our need. Like I said, we enjoy Royal Oak, but this is, at this point, is kind of a hardship with the cost we're paying. And with our understanding originally that the 800 square foot rule was our limiting factor. Beyond that, like I said, we've talked to our neighbors, we talked to DTE, we validated the setback from a perspective of electrical. They have no issues because there's an 11-foot setback. And once again, we would continue to follow the same lot line or the same building dimension that we already are along that right-hand side. If you look at the, Mr. Murphy walked out, but if you look at the overhead, the area we're talking about, to be honest, doesn't serve any purpose for us other than an area which ends up being kind of a place to store stuff, okay? Whereas we can put everything under garage, you can get our vehicles off the street, and that's always, to me, a kind of a negative for Royal Oak, because we see so many vehicles on the street, and this would address that. Any other items?
Questions for the petitioner?
Have you received any, sorry. Deborah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to ask if you tried to redesign this so that you would come within the percentage.
The issue is because I'm trying to store vehicles, I need a certain distance. So the actual requirement, if I was to meet the requirements and then just only have the one variance for the setback to the right-hand side, is you would only allow me to have 14 feet. I can't get a car in that distance, right? So that dimension would allow me to basically put in that 2-car lift on that right-hand side, and it would allow me my place for my shop, plus a little bit of additional storage so I can get some of the stuff out of our basement.
But you could eliminate the woodworking shop or the storage.
So that's a pretty big hardship for me, because that's where I do my recreation. And I'm surely not going to put that in my basement. I can't even get it down there.
Mr. Clatton?
Oh, no, that was my point, Deborah. Same thing too. Is there something you could give up? Could it be, I know you need the length for the car to fit in the lift too, but could you give something up to get, I think you need to shave about 125 square feet if I did the math right. Looks like 675 would be your magic number to stay within the requirements.
You have to sell something, basically, we'd have to give something up, right? More than that, for 125 feet, you'd have to get rid of the cars or the shop or something.
I mean,
That's
part
why
of-
we have to put the lift in, is even to get all the cars in.
So we're willing to put some of the expense in there to take care of it, just to meet that requirement.
I always have a problem finding too many cars and motorcycles as hardships. I personally think this could be done in a way, I mean, I'm kind of okay with the expanding a non-conforming structure some, but I think there's a couple of variances here that don't need to be here.
What, do you have a question for them? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I guess I don't.
Okay.
I have a statement.
Yeah, that's okay. Anyone else have a question for the petitioner?
I guess one last one too. Did you receive any support letters from your neighbors or just verbal?
We verbally talked to them. We actually did not realize, we can easily get them, that's not an issue.
Okay.
Everyone we talked to said no issues they had. If you look at the actual lot plat, there's no other, on the right-hand side, that's a totally open lot. The plat that is on the very back side is a
Garage
garage
right
is
behind
much
it.
further forward.
It's a non-usable space, really, I mean, for anything.
So there's stuff under roof, then what's that?
No, I understand.
Any other questions?
Really, we didn't buy the property with the intention of having to come for a variance. We did what we could do in a week, and then we had to try and buy this thing, which is the reason my name is the only one on there, is because my job came back 3-4 months before his. So, and as you can imagine, it's kind of difficult to purchase a vehicle or purchase a house when you're in China. And we were trying to figure out how to get into Royal Oak and get everything that we had pared down into place, and so that was definitely one of our considerations. And then unfortunately, we found out that it wasn't going to work without a variance, so it wasn't a plan.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one last question.
Yep,
Last
no
one. Just from the aerial, is that a tall pine
Yes.
tree? Okay.
On the neighbor's property.
On the neighbor's property, okay. So it does offer some relief or some shielding of that overall length.
Yeah, you won't really see it. And behind, on the back fence, there's a bunch of those tall,
Arborvitae.
yeah, those,
Oh,
whatever
yeah, the
those big,
arborvitaes.
tall,
Hmm?
evergreeny looking things. Yeah. So it's not visible, and then there's another tree on the other neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Call for questions? No? Again?
One question
Oh, yeah.
comes to mind.
No, no.
Did you, I saw some hand-drawn things that you said you drew. Did you talk to anybody architect-wise who does this sort of thing for a living to try to figure it out? Or you didn't ask
We
him?
talked to
We talked with a number of
contractors.
contractors.
Okay,
Okay, had
yeah,
multiple contractors. Went up and talked to Mr. Murphy,
yeah,
talked with the permit guys, went through the process to understand what the requirements were.
yeah,
But that was after I came here and after we purchased the home in April.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So this was after the purchase.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions? All right, as before with everyone else, there's only 6 of us on the board. You need 5 of us for it to pass. So if you'd like to, after public commentary, I'll ask you if you want us to vote or to adjourn it. So you can discuss that as I ask. Is there anyone here to speak regarding this case? All right, seeing none. That was a quick, you can take a moment if you want real quick to do.
No, we'll take the vote tonight because we want to try and move forward.
Okay. All righty, then we'll open up discussion here and any motions.
Just immediate, I mean, I was leaning towards some type of reduction, but I do appreciate you reaching out to your neighbors. It seems like they're amenable to this. And I guess the positive is that pine tree. I was concerned about that length. It's just a long wall, so that tree would help at least break this up to some degree.
Yeah, I agree with what Mr. Klatt said, but I don't see anything close to a hardship here, so I have a real problem with this one.
Is that a motion or just discussion?
Well, I guess I would ask them to maybe adjourn this, because I'm kind of leaning,
It's too late now.
is it too late now? You sure?
Seems to me you could make a motion to table it if you want.
Yeah,
I-
guess you could.
I would like to make a motion to table it till next month.
Is there support for the motion?
I'll support.
Okay, discussion?
I'm prepared to vote no on this, and I think there's some things they can do that everybody can come out. If they take this vote right now, I think they've got 2 votes they're not getting, and that's gonna cost them a year. So I would strongly recommend, you don't have any hardships. I can appreciate, we sit up here and we hear a lot of needs and a lot of wants. I heard pretty much just wants from you. Cars, motorcycles, and all that, I can appreciate that. We all live with those conditions, but I find 800 feet of garage quite a bit. So I'm prepared to turn it down if you'd like that, or if you would like to take a month to work on this and come back at us. I think that would be in your best interest.
And I would tend to agree with everything you just said, so I would probably not be voting yes on this either.
So for clarification, you say it cost you a year? Because
You can't
even
come
if you
back-
come with a different plan.
Different plan.
You have to wait 12 months to do that. I just
And you
want to
have to
make sure that
pay,
was
and you
clear.
have to repay again, so I think maybe we can all accomplish what we're after here.
You may ask a question, and I'll, real quick if you'd like to. And we'll ask the question real quick if you agree with our thought to adjourn it.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So we would agree to try to make some changes, but the question is what's the main, I'm going to say negative, is you're saying the overall size?
To me, you're asking for 800 feet of garage, and you have too many cars and motorcycles, and that's why you're here to ask us for that. To me, that's not a hardship. Sorry. It's a want, and it might be your hobby, but we're granting variances that go with the property forever. So we're gonna have an 800 square foot garage, and the next guy might want to run his home business out of there. We have no control over it once we grant it. I'm not prepared to give you 800 feet for too many cars and too many motorcycles. Now, if you'd like to take a month and work on this, maybe get some professional help from an architect and say, what possibilities can we do to accomplish this? And cut, I mean, you don't have to cut very much out to be legal for the most part. You'll still have a non-conforming issue, but I could certainly overlook that.
In an attempt to clarify, because you asked a specific question, I think you're asking this question. So if a plan came back that was still asking for variance, the variance you don't want to see is the maximum allowable lot coverage?
Yeah.
Is that the one that seems to be
Yeah,
the most concern? Because, for instance, it's a non-conforming structure already, close to the property line, what have you. But I think you were saying, what's the biggest objection on the list here,
I want to
right?
make it more palatable.
Right, exactly. Fair question. So I guess I think I'm hearing that people are not happy about the coverage issue more so.
From my perspective, they're 125 feet over or needing a variance?
If my math is right, about 125 square feet.
I would hope you'd get somewhere in between where you're at and there.
I would suggest if this gets adjourned, maybe talking with Joseph to see what you exactly.
No.
Oh, no?
They're here and you give them the variance.
That's fair.
So they should ask you the questions.
Okay.
I should not be interpreting what I think the board does or does not want. If they have questions for you about what would be palatable or not, today is the time to ask the questions.
No, I meant for the
I'm
square
not going to
footage.
interpret what you have in mind because I cannot figure it out.
I would like to see a concerted effort to get closer to each other here.
Okay,
So
we understand that, so we'll come back.
Issue.
Yeah, so maybe some creative design, you maybe find a way to do this with less space.
Yeah.
So that is maybe where you may want to talk to an architect who might be able to do that, because it's A and B there, and they're not big percentages, but they're enough that 800 square foot garages on reasonably small lots. And as it was stated before, even if all your neighbors loved the idea, unfortunately, none of you will be alive 100 years from now. and this is still the city of Royal. So that, and that's how you have to look in zoning too, is like, it's now forever. Possibly this isn't desirable forever. So it's a little creative massaging you might get there. Maybe you don't get it, so those are completely gone, but they're significantly reduced. Tiny bits over sometimes are much easier than what feels like a lot.
Okay.
We understand the direction. Because it's hard to say exactly, you know, we can't exactly say what makes everybody vote yes next month, but
I think you have a flavor for
I
it.
think you'd lose this month and,
We,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, we love having you in Royal Oak, and we want you guys to be happy here.
Well,
So,
we were hoping too that actually it's very, very hard to find anything with even a two-car garage, much less anything bigger. And there are a lot of people like us.
Yeah.
So it would seem, to me, it would add value to the property for a space that right now isn't usable. I mean, for anything use, I mean, it's just collect junk back there.
we have to go to our real estate section down here to find that
Anyway,
out.
let's
So
try and
let's
get
table
back-
it then?
Let's try and get back on track. All right, and do you,
Need for clarification?
do you, yeah,
No, we're okay with the tabling, thank you very much.
okay. All right, any more discussion on this motion to table?
I think we've done enough.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes, or I should say it's adjourned, sorry, it's adjourned.
The German passed.
Adjournment passed to next month.
See you again.
Thank you.
Let's see. Moving on to case number 6. Or I should say the 6th item under new business. Case number 18-06-19, 3500 Woodward Avenue. Public hearing on the appeal of 3500 Woodward LLC petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, waive 9 feet of the minimum required, or not 9, sorry, long night already. Waive 9 of the minimum required 26 off-street parking spaces. And B, waive 22 feet of the maximum allowable driveway with a 30 feet along the east property line directly adjacent to the public alley. Mr. Murphy.
This site's located on Woodward Avenue at the intersection of Bamlet, and it was previously utilized as a convenience store. It's been vacant for quite some time. At their May 8th meeting, the Planning Commission granted site plan approval for the site plan that you'll see in front of you on the screen, and to convert the structure and modify the structure slightly to reduce some of the square footage to make a standard or sit-down dine-in restaurant. And it was contingent upon them obtaining the necessary variances from this board. The approved site plan includes 17 off-street parking spaces, and based on their floor area, the standard restaurant requires 26 parking spaces. So they're seeking a waiver of that difference. As well as they have 4 parking spaces and access to their refuse enclosure with access at a right angle on the public alley. So essentially a driveway along the entire approach of the alley that is 52 feet wide, and the ordinance requires a defined driveway and that it not be more than 30 feet. So they're seeking a waiver from that maximum to allow access to those parking spaces at a right angle off of the public alley. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Just one question, Joseph. So in that parking count, it appears those 3 along Woodward, those were not included, correct?
That's correct, yes. There was some discussion about the use and/or modifications to the public right-of-way, but the approval included what you see in front of you. So it gets to remain. It does need to be modified to meet some of the design standards, but that'll be ironed out later when they apply for any modifications that they need from MDOT.
So in theory, there's roughly 20 spaces here. There's really no adjoining businesses next to this. In theory, there's 20.
There's a business, the dance studio, directly north of them.
And then just one last point. I believe that there's also no parking along the side street to the south on both sides too. I believe that's correct. I just wanted to bring that up though too. There's no parking signs along there.
I do not recall.
I think it was just
Van
going
Street.
east. There was
Just
no
east.
parking. I
Probably
didn't-
do a quick Google Street View on the
Yeah,
computer.
I thought I
to
saw them
find
on
out.
both sides, and just to ease any concerns
Might
about
be-
parking along
yeah.
the side streets.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, if the petitioner is present, please come forward, state your name, address for the record.
Good evening, Brian Nager, Nager Companies, address 600 North Old Woodward. I'm here to request the variance for 30500 Woodward. It's a building that we purchased approximately 3 years ago. And, part of the reason that I'm here before you is that we've run into some hardships as far as trying to get this building repurposed. So we want nothing more, I want nothing more than to try to repurpose this building and bring it up to standards to make it a, usable, reputable, nice business there. So some of the things that we've tried to do was to initially, the store closed down, the liquor store. We tried to release that. It doesn't seem to be a viable option these days. Some of these liquor stores are unable to survive because most of the fuel stations now are bringing liquor into the store, beer, wine, liquor. So it's hard to be competitive in that business without having fuel as well. We also tried bringing in some fitness uses. We didn't have any luck there, and those would have created some hardships as well. We tried a mobile MRI. That had a little bit of resistance due to trying to bring these mobile units in and the trucks backing in and out. The site is tight. So we've run into, a number of obstacles there. So what we're trying to do here is create something that is going to be, usable and beneficial, and we think it would be, congruent with the neighborhood there. We are along Woodward, but we're also respectful of the fact that there's a neighborhood back there. So we want to be mindful of that, and we want to create a use there. Some of the users that we're talking to about this would be a coffee or juice type concept, more of the the fresh juices and things like that. So they might do juices and bagels and things like that. So we think it would be a great use for the building, and right now I think that's where we're at. So part of also what we did was we went to planning, and we've had several meetings about this with the planning. And what we did was we're taking a building that's now 3,200 square feet. We are actually cutting down the square footage of the building. We're going to eliminate 1,000 square feet off the building to make it approximately 2,200 feet. That is in order to gain some on-site parking. So that's part of how we addressed some of this parking issue. And in addition to that, we also added some parking and created a dumpster area. The dumpster enclosure will be nice. Right now there is no dumpster enclosure. The dumpster basically sits in the back alley or on the side of the building, so sort of unsightly. I think that in addition to us cutting down the building, creating parking, creating the dumpster enclosure, we're also going to upgrade the building, put in some money into the HVAC, into the exterior storefront, which is going to be replaced with all new glass. So I think it'll do a lot to enhance the neighborhood there, or enhance that piece along Woodward and Royal Oak. So, any questions for me?
I do have one. I guess I looked at this thinking that you had somebody ready to move in. It sounds like you're on a concept, but you don't have a client yet?
We're talking to several tenants that are interested in it, yes.
I guess I question why you're in front of us tonight when the person you finally make a deal with could need something different than you're asking for.
Well, the idea is that everything that we've done up to this point is pretty standard and would work well for a few different types of users there. So, yeah.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Lisa Hamami. I'm an attorney. I work with Brian Nazier. And I can assure you that I've worked with Brian Nazier for several years just trying to get this space filled. We've met with the planning department on numerous occasions with different concepts. What happens is, as soon as a tenant finds out that there are issues, so they'll call the department and they'll say this, here's what we want to do in this space. the department tells them, well, you're going to have an issue with parking, you're going to have an issue with this, you're going to have an issue with that, they walk away. So after numerous attempts of trying to work with the planning department and figure out what kind of use is going to work here with the parking limitations, Brian decided, I need to know I'm going to get approved for a particular use with a particular site plan so that I can then show people, okay, they're okay with this when I'm trying to lease this space. And I know he does have a couple of uses that he's been speaking to, and if in fact this gets approved, I think he's going to get him a long way to getting one of those leases signed. And as he indicated, they're all, you know, what's unfortunate about the ordinance, and I understand it, but we fall under the category of standard restaurant, which a standard restaurant is usually seating, a lot of seats. The concept that he's proposing isn't really, I mean, technically it falls under the definition of standard restaurant, but that's not what he's trying to fill this space with. As he indicated, his intent is more of like a juice bar concept. And if you look at the site plan that the Planning Commission approved, it even supports that. There's 5 two-tops shown.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
I guess one more thing I'd like to add is that you know, we purchased a building and these are all existing conditions. There are some nuances there that, and they are challenging. So, you know, we work on other sites as well. We have other shopping centers and buildings, and there are some challenges here. So these are not, we didn't build the building. All of this was existing, and we're just doing our best to improve it and make it a usable building.
Okay. Seeing no questions, as I stated before, there's only 6 of us up here. You need 5 of us saying yes for it to grant. So if you want, you can discuss whether or not you want to go ahead or not while we open up public comment.
Yeah, we'd like to proceed and open up public comment.
Okay. Anyone here to speak regarding this case, please come forward. All right, I guess you guys are all for the last case then, I guess. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And you said you'd like to proceed with us to vote on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion and/or motions. Ms. Sukin.
I have a question for Joseph. If we approve this variance, it's for this site plan specifically? If they change the site plan since the Planning Commission approved this, they'd have to deal with parking?
I'm assuming you're more focused on the floor plan,
Yes.
not the site itself,
Well,
but the floor plan.
Yeah.
They've depicted a floor plan. Obviously, they've told you they don't have a tenant. This will help them go out and retain a tenant. We wouldn't make it specific to this particular floor plan. The only aspect is the square footage. So if a prospective tenant came in and they had a different floor plan and it was still the same usable floor area, they would be fine. They've depicted something here that shows a few tables. A different tenant may come in and say, I'd like to have a countertop that just wraps all along the entire front half of the building and have bar stools along it, and then you have 20 seats now versus 12 or what have you. But the usable floor area, still the same. So I wouldn't focus too much on the number of seats you see on the floor plan itself.
Right, it's the square footage.
Yeah,
So
it's the square
the
footage.
reduced square footage is what we're dealing with.
And they could have a smaller cooking area or something of that nature and more seating if it was a different tenant, who knows? All different tenants have different mixes, but it all comes down to the usable floor area.
With Joe?
Oh, go ahead.
I remember at one time, there was some serious parking issues down there. I know we had Manus with signs saying no parking anywhere, and you had the credit union, and then I think you also had the real estate office there. And I remember there was always a conflict of parking between those 3. Did you know if that's kind of calmed down? I haven't heard about it lately, but when I saw this, that's the first thing that jumped out at me.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, no one from the neighborhood was here to speak on that, but I don't feel a lot of questions or comments from the neighborhoods about the current condition, no.
I guess back to the one point, the question I asked you originally about the no parking, I'm pretty confident, you might look at my photos, that they're really there's no parking on either side of Bamlet. So I don't think they really can flood the street with parking.
Yeah, and if you look at their curb cuts along Bamlet, there might be a room to park one vehicle here, but the engineering department would probably not recommend that, because then it would block the visibility of anybody coming out of this driveway to see someone coming down the street here. So they probably will sign that whole area, at least to the alley, as no parking.
And that still is not adjacent to residential either.
Correct.
So then, if there's a parking problem, it's the tenant's problem, not the neighborhood's.
That was my point.
Yeah.
Any comments? Yes.
Yeah, I've had a tendency over the years to vote yes on parking issues on Woodward, because I think it's like water seeking its own level. If you move in there and you don't have anywhere to park, probably people aren't going to go there. So I've never worried too much. We have a major under parking, very little parking on Woodward, really, for the amount of cars we need.
I was going to say that I think our planning commission vetted this out well. I think there's some good contingencies upon this. And I appreciate the fact that you maximize the parking. I don't see how you can fit any more parking spaces on this site.
Cutting 1,000
Is
feet
that a
out is good.
motion to?
So that is a motion to approve this time, these variances.
Is there anyone to support?
I'll support that.
Okay. Additional discussion, or
I'm all set.
anyone else like to speak regarding this motion?
It's a bit of a crapshoot for me as I sit here looking at this, because I don't really know what I'm voting on. But I can also appreciate their need. I mean, I've watched that building since you bought it, really, and kind of wondered what it was going to be at some point. So it sounds to me like you've got a better idea for it than I do, so I'll run with you.
I'm concerned about the parking, but seeing that no one from the neighborhood came in to concern, and we know that area does have problems with parking and traffic regarding
Also-
other things,
Also vocal neighbors.
and vocal neighbors, we would know that they would be for us usually. So in which case, I'm sort of leaning towards you. We know Woodward's always going to have problem with parking, and hey, either your business will be able to deal with that, or the neighborhood will get inundated. And if the neighbors aren't concerned, then maybe they see this as not an issue. So I'm all right with variances request. All right. Seeing no other discussion, call to a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. It passes. All right.
Good luck to you.
Mr. Chair, I'll need to recuse myself for this next agenda item too. My company has direct involvement.
Again?
Only once this time.
Okay, that brings us to the final case of the night, 18-06-20. Public hearing of 303 East Kenilworth LLC, petitioner owner for the following variances at 303 East Kenilworth.
Joe?
And I have a feeling I know what you're going to ask.
Go ahead. You're counting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the use variances is A, and we have a potential of only 5 votes on this board tonight.
I think I'd like to have the whole board hear this, as opposed to 6 of us and then have that, I mean,
Well,
they're not
There's only
eligible
5 of
tonight.
There's only 5
There's
of
only
us, I
five.
would say
They
board.
can't-
Fine, and we need 6, and so then it's not even eligible.
it can't
Why would
pass.
we hear this tonight? I'd rather hear it.
Unless you.
Wait, please, hold on. Hold on. Mr. Murphy.
Okay, we did notice it for public hearing, so I would like to proceed with our presentation and the public comment portion, and then the petitioner can provide any comments that they so choose, and we'll then hold it over for next month.
Okay, thank you. So going through the list of variances.
You want me to just launch right into them?
No, I'll read the variances and then go ahead. Variance A, a use variance. Variance B, waive 7,536 square feet of the minimum required 12,000 square feet lot area. C, waive 2.4 feet of the minimum required 25-foot south front yard setback. D, waive 18.7 feet of the minimum required 25-foot north rear yard setback. E, waive 21 feet of the minimum required 25 feet east yard setback. F, waive 21.4 feet of the minimum required 25 feet west side yard setback measured to the exterior of the nearest point of the living space. G, waive 25 feet of the minimum required 25 feet west side yard setback measured to the nearest point of the second-story balconies. H, waive 6.4 of the minimum required 10-foot west side yard setback to provide clear visibility for drivers exiting the attached accessory structures / garages. And I, waive the required 6-foot wall or fence along the east property line. Mr. Murphy.
The petitioner is proposing to demolish the existing structure that's on the site. The existing structure is a non-conforming multiple family dwelling. The property is zoned one-family residential. They're looking to construct another multiple family structure. This time it'll only have 3 units. Again, those one-family residential zoning district only allows single-family homes. It certainly wouldn't allow a multifamily structure with 3 units, so they're seeking a use variance that would require 6 affirmative votes in order to be able to construct the 3-unit. If approved, it would need variances related to the total, or rather the minimum lot size requirements for 3 units. The site contains a little over 4,000 square feet, and based on 3 units, it would require 12,000 square feet. So they would be requiring a waiver from the minimum lot size standards. They would also be seeking a waiver from the setback requirements, which are 25 feet from setback from all the property lines. And I won't go through all of them. You'd mentioned them, and they're referenced on the drawings, but there are setback variances related to the nearest point of the structure, be that the balconies or be it the exterior, the nearest point of living space. And then they also have 3 individual driveways off of Delaware Avenue, and those enter into 2-car attached garages. The attached garages are 10 feet off of the property line, the south property line along Delaware Avenue. And the ordinance says they can be no closer than 10 feet, and they are seeking a variance to waive the clear visibility area for when someone is backing out of that garage and that driveway onto Delaware Avenue due to the proximity of what will be a sidewalk on that improved right-of-way. And lastly, they're seeking a waiver from the requirement of a 6-foot screening wall along the property line to buffer or distinguish their multifamily development from the adjacent single-family residence.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes.
So I'm assuming that everything we've decided on this property so far is no longer good? I mean, it seems like we've approved the use variance once, and...
Yes, and that was applicable to that, what was proposed at the time. What you see in front of you is substantially different, so it wouldn't apply to this circumstance. Correct.
They would certainly win by being in front of us the most times, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we're happy customers. We've made a lot of money off of them.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the abbreviated Zoning Board of Appeals. By the way, if I'm a little weary, I went through this last night in Warren and had to postpone our project there. But in any event, life happens. So Dennis Cowan, Plunkett Cooney, 38505 Woodward, but I'm also a Royal Oak resident. And with me is one of the principals, which is Bill Adams, who's the owner, also a Royal Oak resident and the owner of Adams Realty. Bill has sold hundreds of homes and condominiums in the community, and also Royal Oak resident and our architect here, also on 11 Mile, not too far away from Bill, Jason Krieger. So, you know, you might want to say you've seen this movie before, but we're different. We're not the other group. I want to make that very clear. Mr. Adams and his partner have totally bought out T&J Investments. They have no involvement in this project. Their our ownership is 100% different than the prior versions and proposals that came before you. So let's. I know you're very familiar with this property, and we do have people who have been waiting. So I just want to be very brief in our presentation. So what the major differences are, and we think they're very, very important to emphasize, is that we are reducing from 5 multifamily units to 3. So we're reducing the variance request you had looked at before. In addition, something very important, these will be sold as condominiums. These will not be rental units. So we are selling to people who want to own and live in this community. Another very important feature, I know for many of the neighbors, is the parking. There was a parking variance granted because there was only 2 parking spaces. We're providing a parking compliant project. I think the other thing that's very exciting for actually this little, part of Delaware, even though the address for this will be on Kenilworth, is that we're looking at a couple very significant things happening in this area. First, this street, which has never been paved, is scheduled to be paved in either late August or early September, but before the end of the year. There's some details. I've been in touch with the city attorney. So we're going to have a brand-new paved street. The other situation, which makes our property very unique, is this property will be looking at the parking lot, but also we have a commercial building behind us, which is also being renovated for an IT company. And they're doing substantial renovations. They're in process right now. So there's going to be a very different look on Delaware and Kenilworth, and between Kenilworth and Parent, and we hope to be part of that. Some of the variances are very similar to the ones that you've seen before, but I think the important thing from a neighborhood perspective is no parking variance and no height variance. So what we did is we know, and Mr. Adams and his partner recognize this is a very sensitive issue in the community, and there's been several meetings, as you know, that you've considered other versions of this project. So what we did is we called Wendy Thompson, who's the neighborhood leader, and we put together a small group of neighbors, and we went to meet. And full disclosure, 5 of the 6 were in favor, 1 was not, and we respect that. We understand that this is a sensitive issue, but we believe we have a very good plan. We also sent a letter out to all 97 people on the notice list. We didn't have a meeting because we were, this time of year is pretty hectic with schools, graduations, and all kind of things, so we weren't able to do that. But we did offer, and we did have some individuals email us and ask for a copy of the plan, and we sent it to them. We also were available if they had any questions. And the questions we got, 3 of them that I got, were when is the road going to be paved? So I had to rely upon the information I got from the city attorney. And then last but not least, we went, Mr. Adams and I went and met with Mrs. Ahmed, who has owned and lived in the house for 37 years, and her son, Misbah. And Mrs. Ahmed asked that if it's approved, she did not want the fence to come actually between her house and the structure. She wanted her fence to just be in the normal course to the back of her house line. And also she asked that the gate out of my client's backyard that had been on the property line be replaced because it's not there, so that we still have the gate. So, and we agreed that we would build a new fence, and she had a couple other smaller requests that we're gonna go over if we're approved and agree to do. So we were very pleased with that meeting. So I wanted to bring those matters to your attention. We recognize you deal with the public all the time. We took this head on, and we think we've had some success. We recognize there may be some difference of opinion, but we believe that this project will stand the test of time. So I'm just going to ask if you have any questions on the architectural renderings. Jason is here to answer them, but otherwise we'll continue with the public hearing. I assume, unless, do you have any questions for us?
I'm confused about the fence between the neighbor to the east and your property.
Yes.
You're saying you're not going to put one in at her request?
No. What I said was the strict. So Mrs. Ahmed's house is here.
Right.
The current fence runs up to the back of the house line. Okay. If you read the literal letter of the law, we have to build a fence all the way out. She said, and we agree, she does not want the fence. That's a very tight area in there. And so she said, I don't want the fence right next to my house, and we agree with her. But there will be a fence from the back of her house line, so to speak, all the way back. That exists today. It's an older fence, and we all agreed that at our cost, we would build a new fence. And we're going to look at, the type of fence and the design and things of that nature with her if this is approved. So that, just to clarify.
So the only thing then between the two buildings will be landscaping? Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be some landscaping in there, yes. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Additional questions? I have a quick one, just because I'm confused about it. The 6.4 minimum required 10-foot west side setback for driver visibility. I'm trying to discern where that is, because it looks all right to me, but I'm...
Jason Krieger with Krieger Architects, 2120 East 11 Mile. That dimension is from the building, which is where the garage door is, to the property line. I believe that's the...
Yeah, okay. That's right, because I was taking into account the sidewalk, and I was thinking there's...
Right, correct, yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you count the sidewalk, you have a little bit more room, but it's a technicality in the ordinance.
Yeah, well, it's also for the people walking on the
Yep,
sidewalk.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there, yep, because there's definitely no way you can get around that with, yep.
Correct.
Thank you. We'll be here if there's any further questions. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, we'll open up public comment for anyone who would like to speak on this. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Paul Wright. I live on 202 East Kenilworth. I've been there 30 years. And we got condos all the way around our neighborhood. I don't think we need one right on our street. I like to have it stay as a neighborhood, not just have it, because I'm looking right at it. I'm like the third house down. And I'd appreciate, not having a condo on our street. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Move forward.
I'm Wendy Thompson, 323 East Kenilworth. I hope you people I'd heard other stories that you went and checked out the site plans that you walked by. Did you see that nice dump on our corner, the white elephant? It's been there for 2.5, 3 years. Supportive of this new project. I think it'll be a great asset. We've talked to the developers about landscaping, and Dennis Cowan mentioned paving the road. It's been 30 years. We want that road paved. So we get this approved. I know it can't be approved tonight, but maybe next month, maybe. We'll see what you guys say. Get it started, get the base done, so we get that road paved and finish the project. But that white elephant's been sitting there for about 2.5, 3 years, and it's an eyesore. It's never been up to code. The sidewalk, we can hardly walk down it. When people were living there, it's been a nightmare. I think this will be a nice, positive plus to our neighborhood. With a nice paved road, please. But next month, when we're on the agenda, could we be first?
We like having you fill the room, we feel like.
We could do that.
We'll come with anybody.
No, if we are first, we'll fill the room, okay?
You'd be old. You gotta stay till the end then.
No.
Anyone else like to come speak? Come forward.
My name is Misbah Ahmed. I live at 309 East Kenilworth Avenue. I've been shown these plans and I was disappointed by them. It looks like a rehash of what I was shown before with another building that was supposed to take place on this site. I think building such a large townhouse on such a small property would be a mistake. This building would eliminate people from being able to see anything beyond this. Basically, you wouldn't be able to see a sunset from your yard anymore with this new building. I really enjoyed the view from my kitchen window and from my backyard. And with this new townhouse, it would be completely blocked by this but the view would be completely blocked. All I'd be able to see is the giant brick wall that is the rear of this building. I really enjoy being able to view the sunset from my backyard. These townhouses would completely eliminate all I could see from my yard, and as well as anybody else from to the west of my house. I don't think these townhouses are a good match for this neighborhood. I feel they're very out of place for such a small lot. I suggest we turn these plans down. Thank you.
Okay.
Name is John McIntosh, 327 East Kenilworth. I am a disabled American veteran. I'm a proud member of the UAW. I'm a taxpayer, lived here for 20 years, and I vote. First thing is that the hardship is not being put upon us, the residents. The existing proposal does not aesthetically accentuate the existing neighborhood as it stands. Okay? So basically you have hundreds of houses back in that little neighborhood, tucked away, surrounded by condos on three sides, a railroad track and an expressway, and you have a bunch of little, tiny little houses and antique houses that were built back in the 20s. And the only biggest way to get into that neighborhood there, we have a nice little park back there and stuff like that. The biggest way to get into that neighborhood is down Kenilworth. Okay, so basically Kenilworth is the gateway to the neighborhood. All the streets are dead end. Okay, because Kenilworth has a light, the other streets are virtually impossible to make a left-hand turn out onto Main Street to access the expressway. So most of those neighbors from the other streets will come on over to Kenilworth and go out through the traffic light. What that corner is the gateway to my neighborhood. And the proposal is a building that doesn't accentuate the architectural structures that are pre-existing in my neighborhood. Okay? I also like to point out that the structure completely absorbs the existing building. They have asked for more square footage tonight than anyone has all night. You guys have quibbled over 40-foot lot sizes. I'd like to simply point out that this lot size is only 31 feet wide. Okay, so they are asking to put this enormous building on this tiny little lot in an antique, old-style neighborhood that doesn't fit. And I can see their points, and Mr. Nkoa and I go back many years. Mr. Anderson, I apologize. I find that he's probably also a pillar of the community, and your architectural friend is also probably a very nice man. But Mr. Violante, the owner of the Holiday Market, has sold you a bill of goods. This property has been sat derelict for 3 years. What did you expect the neighborhood to act like? Okay? What? Leave it. They promised to do right by the neighborhood a year ago in front of this group with this big, beautiful house that was going to be restored to fit into the neighborhood. That was some deal. The first deal was 8 condos or 8 apartments there with a variance for each of the rooms to be under 400 square feet. That fell through. Then it went to 5 apartments there, up building. That fell through. Finally, we get an agreement with the zoning board and with Mr. Violante and the property owners. They're just going to take the pre-existing structure and rebuild it into a house and put some apartments in there, and that will be it. And they did waive the parking issue, which is still an issue. And just because you put your parking on site underneath a condominium doesn't mean that people have to park in them, okay? Most people's garages are usually full of crap, and they don't necessarily put their cars into them, okay? So that's another issue, all right? This guy here earlier tonight got tabled because he wants to extend his garage so he can put 3 cars and 2 motorcycles into it. What makes you think that condo owners are going to park both their cars in there, okay? I'm just saying These guys have all the money and the credentials and all the best intentions of what they want to do. The building architecturally does not jibe with the rest of the neighborhood, okay? It's too small of a lot, okay? And I have now ruined my shift, and I will not be able to return to work. So I've taken I'm losing 4 hours of pay tonight because I had to come in here to find out that you guys weren't going to vote it because there are not enough guys, which then makes me know that I got to be back here in a month from now to argue this point again. And as you have said on so many other occasions about the mob mentality, is that, Wendy says we can grit the neighborhood out. That's what it takes. But we've tried that before. We've been through all these games with this property. Okay? We have already. So we'll see you next month.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Cowan or Mr. Krieger?
Let's wait for after public comment, please. Any other? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline House. I live at 302 East Kenilworth, directly across the street from your property. I can appreciate that this would be residential, that they would be sold to people, and that it would finally look better, but I do have concerns. You did bring up the garages and backing out, and I do have a conforming fence, 3 feet, for visibility, and I can tell you, I'm very appreciative of that 3-foot fact because there are still people constantly walking by. And what are you gonna do if you pass it and then somebody gets hit because they can't see? So even when you do abide by the actual ordinances, it's very hard to see. So I have concerns for 3 garages along that area and safety for that. I'm concerned about it being 30 feet tall and overshadowing. And at one of the meetings we had last April, Brad, the builder that lives farther down the street, said, if I were gonna come up here, you guys would not let me do that. So if I were to sell my house to Brad and bring along the same plans, you guys would not approve it, and it's just across the street. So you're making, they were saying.
I'm just wondering why you'd assume that.
Well, it seems to be about greed, about business. It's all been about business. It's a residential community, residential. So as business owners keep owning it, they want to turn it into 3 different properties to make more money, not to keep with the residential area. I don't want to sell my house and do that. I'm just saying it was a point that was brought up at a previous meeting. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Can I ask Mr. Krieger? Dimensionally, there's a feeling in the audience today coming at us that this is much larger than what is now sitting there. Can you address that, please? Height, width?
So the dimensions along the west and east are pretty comparable to what was granted before and also what the building currently is there. Along the front yard, which is the south, we actually brought it back a bit to be in line with the neighbor that is to the east. We are farther back along the north than what we had before. You can see a dashed line there that represents the difference. The exact dimension I don't have in front of me. But what you can see, though, is that you would be allowed to build, I think it's 25 feet from the back property line anyways, which would still go back farther to the north on the site. Height-wise, we're comparable to any other house in the neighborhood. We're 30 feet, which is within the ordinance. And really, I believe the ordinance allows you to go to 30 feet to the midpoint, which means the peak can go a little bit higher for a peaked home. So we're actually, I think, right in line there. So I think we are a little bit larger, but we're still, I feel, within the realm of the ordinance.
Is there something that you're proposing that would affect sunsets?
Well, I think the only thing that would affect sunsets would be that the building does extend to the north on the property that would block any kind of sun. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now then, Mr. Cowan and group, I assume that since there's not enough people to even vote on the use variance, you would like us to table this till next month?
Since it's a mathematical impossibility, unless a ghost from one of your colleagues appears. No, we want to thank you for your time No, we kind of had a sense that we were going to get tabled, but we'll be back, and we appreciate your time and your input. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, if you want to put them through Joe or however, and we'll be answering them, because we do want to come and answer and be as best prepared as possible for both you and your other colleagues who will be here next month.
Okay, thank you.
Right? Thank you.
Is there, yes, right. Is there a motion?
Move to table.
Support.
Okay. I don't think, is there any discussion needed? No. All right, all in favor of tabling till next month, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Being first on the agenda next time?
You will be in order of ones that have been tabled. I don't know how many have been tabled.
I think it's just two, isn't
I think there was only two, so you might be second. Moving on. Other business. Seeing none, we'll leave it to public comment. Anything for public comment?
Public is all leaving.
Seeing no public comment, do we have a mystery motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? No. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. We're done.